Hey my good friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Look at this. Have we got something futuristic for you today? This is the 2024 Kia EV9 three-row crossover SUV. Just look at that. Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to have a good look at it inside and out. We're going to take it for a test drive, and then I'm going to tell you what it's really like to live with. All right, my friends, I did say this is futuristic, and look at it. Would you just look at this thing? When I first saw the pictures in the video of this vehicle when they unveiled it last year, I was just blown away by its very fashion and future-forward design language, its boxy silhouette, the muscular shape and stance, and all of the details that really look like more of a concept car than something you'd expect to find on a showroom. But Kia is just the brand that's brave enough to do this kind of thing, and I love that. I love that from Kia. And so looking at the details right up front, this has a face that you cannot forget. It looks very Transformers-like. LED headlights with a lot of design elements going on, and the daytime signature that you can see there is very distinctive, even down on the lower trim grades. But what is here on the higher trim grade is you can see that this has this LED light grid pattern that's in the grille that sort of lights up from behind the color, which is very cool. And speaking of the trim grade we're on, this is a fully loaded GT line all-wheel drive, $78,000 as tested. It is the most you can spend on the EV9. It starts out down under $60,000 if you get a rear-wheel drive base model, and then start working yourself up from there. There's a lot of mid-range in the trim grade lineup. And with the GT packaging, this comes with 21-inch wheels on this one. And gloss black trim can pretty much be found everywhere around the wheel arches, down the lower rockers, which are unique to the GT line, and then around the windows, up on the top, the black roof rails that you can see up there are also part of this top line trim grade. Under the hood is a storage space that we like to call a frunk in the automotive business. It's like a trunk, but it's in the front, hence the word frunk. It is not quite as large as you might find in some of the other EVs out there, but it is a place that you can put a few things that you don't need access to on a regular basis. Now from the front of the vehicle, this is very distinctive, but look at this. Look at this rear three-quarter view. I love the way this all comes together in a bold, muscular, broad-shouldered look. This window line just kicks up here with some authority up into a built-in spoiler, and it's got hips, man, or shoulders, depending on how you like to look at it. And these big LED taillights, look at that, there's a lot going on there. They really have a very distinctive signature at night, and they just really pop. And with the gloss black trim that sort of wraps around and works here, I just think this is a vehicle that we're not going to forget, maybe as time goes on. This is a power opening rear hatch, as you'd expect at this price. The charging port, it's back here on the back of the vehicle, like a number of Kias that we've tested of late. Not my favorite location. It does force you to back into a garage or back into a space where you're going to have a charger. I prefer to pull in and have it at the front, but nonetheless, it works pretty well. It just sort of pops open. Power operated there, as you can see, pretty cool. And so this has a big battery underneath of it, about the size of a queen size bed, 99.8 kilowatt hours. And with that big battery, it has a 270-mile range according to the EPA, and the charging times are on the graphic there, as you can see. I don't have them all memorized, but because it does have a big battery, some of those charging times can be a little bit longer than you might find on smaller EVs. But if you have access to that 350 kilowatt fast charger, this is set up to charge fast. The interior of the EV9 is very much like the exterior. It has a very fashion forward and futuristic design, and we've seen that in a lot of the Kias of late. And the materials and the overall execution of the design I find very good. As you look around, it has sort of a mid-century modern look and feel, yet it has all the technology and all the features that we expect in not only today's cars, but maybe even a few things that we didn't expect. As we look at the dash, you can see this has sort of a similar layout to what we've seen in other Kias. It's got a dual 12.3-inch screen, one for the infotainment system, one for the instrument cluster, but there's also a little center screen here between those two, which is really more for the climate controls. So you can actually go over to that center screen and adjust some of the climate controls without having to dig into any menus. There's also hard controls, touch sensitive controls on the bar below that and down below the vents. So there's a lot of different ways that you can control the HVAC. You don't necessarily have to dig into some of the menus and whatnot. The seating position is very SUV-like. The seats here are a very nicely done vinyl. They're heated and ventilated up front. They have full adjustment range. They have a massage feature, and they also have this very cool feature on the lower, which is a sort of a leg support that comes up, kind of like a mini ottoman. When you push these seats back, you can use those just for comfort, maybe on a long road trip. The driver even has that too, but you have to be not driving to use it. And look at the headrest. That's actually a mesh that you can see through. It's very futuristic. It's comfortable. The steering wheel ahead of me is a very nicely upholstered steering wheel with thumb controls and a lot of different controls for the various drive modes, and the infotainment system and the instrument cluster ahead of me, that instrument cluster I referenced, that can be customized in a number of different ways to not only look a little bit different, but have the information that you want to see on it laid out the way you want to see it. As we look at the center stack and the center console, this is something a little bit different than you might expect. It is sort of a cantilevered console, and down on the lower part of the dash are USB ports and buttons in which you can control how those are used. Down below on the floor is a big bin down there that you can put a backpack, a purse perhaps, and here in the center console it has this roll top on it that allows you to open it up, and there you have the cup holders. Now those sort of pop out, so you can have a square box down there and not the cup holders, or you can press the buttons and those rotate around. This is kind of a cool little design, but I will point out that one complaint I have had about it this week is I've got a big metal bottle that I take with me, and that rattles against the hard plastic, but that's just a little thing. Now, the center console has an interesting layout here. It has a big wireless charger here for your phone, and then a small little cubby in the back. Not very big. It's only about the size of half of a square tissue box, which means that it's got the outline of one, but it's only about 2 inches deep. But there is more storage in the back, which we'll get to here in a moment. Above me is actually something that was a bit of a surprise. Most of these big SUVs these days have gone to these big panoramic roofs. This actually has a dual roof setup. It's got a standard sunroof in the front that does open, and then when you get to the back, it has a full panoramic roof that covers the second and the third rows. The second row is very spacious, as you can see. These seats up here are set for my height, about 5'8", 5'9", depending on what I'm wearing for shoes. And as you can see, I've got a lot of space, almost a full foot ahead of my knees here to these seats. And this does have the captain's chair package, which is quite a spend up, but it does give you quite a few things. These are power seats back here. They are heated, they're ventilated. A lot of amenities, things like not only the window shades here, but this big window and a lot of vents to go around, spread around for the second and the third row. Now, I mentioned that there's more storage back here. Down here on the back of the center console is a nice pull out, which gives you a bit of a table. Maybe you're eating food back here. You can extend it down inside. All of that storage that we really didn't find up in the center console area, you can find back here. That is very helpful, especially if you've got a whole family that you're carrying around in this and they've got all their little doodads. But they didn't forget the outlets for the power. Just on the back of each of these two front seats, you find USB ports. Seeing as how these seats are fully adjustable with power, there is a very cool little feature here which allows you to have some leg support. Kind of comfy, I like it. It's not really something that allows you to completely recline and go back all the way, but it does allow you to get a bit more of a comfortable position. It's not like what we've seen in some of the minivans that actually becomes a full lounge chair, because we just don't have the space here. But what is very cool is getting into that third row. So easy. You press a button and that's it. Seat goes forward, out of the way, power operated, and then look at that, a pretty nice third row seat is big enough for adults back there. You'll have to trust me, I'm not going to get back there and demonstrate it for the camera, but it is a nice sizable third row. The rear cargo area with all of the seats up, you can see, is pretty sizable. They didn't really skimp on space back there, and putting these seats down is pretty easy. Now the third row, you do have to pull some straps to get those down. That's a bit more of a conventional setup, but when it comes to putting down the second row seats, you just press a button and they're power operated from the back, and there's no catch, there's no gimmick. You press the button and down they go. It's very cool to watch, but it's even cooler if you're out there at a big box store doing some shopping and you want to load this thing up. You don't have to open the side doors and mess around and do all of that. You can take care of everything from the back. This is an interior that I'm very impressed with. The futuristic, fashion-forward design. I'm impressed with the quality, the switchgear, the comfort, and the versatility for being a three-row crossover. It's got the versatility here and in the back. It's got the comfort here and in the back. It's really set up to be top of class, and at this price, it should be. This interior gets 5 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is the top of the line in this particular vehicle. 12.3-inch screen, very similar to what you're going to find in other Hyundai Kia vehicles. Android Auto, Apple CarPlay, Bluetooth connectivity. It has navigation, pretty much all the bells and whistles that you could ask for. There's a number of online cloud connected services that do require a subscription, and it does have Meridian audio, which is the top of the line for Kia. Very good sound. Navigating around and using its menus is quite straightforward and easy, and there's a lot to dig into here with the settings and other things. I like the way they've done it. It responds well to the overall controls on the steering wheel, and one of the cool things is it has a thumb wheel here on the steering wheel for the volume. There's also one down here on the dash. So I'm always somebody that likes hard controls for volume and tuning. Now they didn't give me that for tuning here, but you do get used to what they've got, and there is a thumb control here for that tuning, just not a knob. It also has a 360-degree view camera monitor system, and that can be adjusted and sort of give you a different view of where you're at and what's going on around you. It's well done, and the graphics and the quality of the resolution are such that it makes it easy for parallel parking and getting into spaces, maybe in and out of the garage, things like that. It's well done. I like it. It gets 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, now it's time to take this for a drive. And the first question I always like to ask is, how does it go? So we're going to come to a complete stop. We're out here in the middle of nowhere. There's nobody around. And go. Woo! Oh, my eyeballs are sinking back. And 60. And even faster than that. Well, I'm not going to say how fast that was, but it was getting close to 100. So this has got a lot of power. It's quiet, smooth, refined power. It's an EV. You expect that. What's under the hood, so to speak, is 2 electric motors, one at the front axle, one at the rear axle. In between, under the floor, a large battery, as we talked about. And this has all-wheel drive as a result. This has 379 horsepower, 516 pound-feet of torque. That's a lot. And it needs it because this is a heavy vehicle, just under 6,000 pounds. The powertrain is very smooth and very refined. It delivers power immediately. You mash the pedal and it just pushes you back in your seat. There's a very nice, cute sound. It is a bit of a manufactured sound, admittedly. It says it in the features list. They don't hide the fact that they've given us a little bit of a sound to have, otherwise there would be none. And on the steering wheel are paddle shifters that control the regenerative braking. They're not for shifting, obviously, but you can dial this thing up to have a one-pedal drive, so you can strengthen the regenerative braking all the way to the point where if you let off the throttle, it will come to a complete stop without even touching the brake pedal. And I'm coming to a complete stop right now, and my foot has never touched the brake. And that is pretty cool because that allows you to really get a lot of extra range from the battery through regenerative braking. And then there are other shades of gray in that you don't have to have it all the way to that level. You can adjust it to any level of strength that you want. And that's pretty cool. So what is the range? 270 miles. And that's an EPA range. Now, when I got this, it was fully charged. It actually said 310 miles on it. And that's because whoever had the vehicle before me was very good. My driving experience on this is about 2.1 to 2.8 miles per kilowatt hour, which puts us close to getting that same range that's advertised. So I'm pretty happy with the powertrain on this, and I have been in most of the other Kia Hyundai vehicles, even Genesis, that I've tested, that all use this same drivetrain and platform architecture for the most part. It's well proven. It's been out for a couple of years. This is just the largest vehicle that they put it in so far, and there will be more to come. So I'm very happy with it. This powertrain gets 5 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the chassis, the ride, the drive, the handling experience, it has a pretty standard chassis makeup. It has McPherson struts in the front and a multi-link suspension at the rear. And even on this Highline model, it has a coil spring suspension, not an air suspension like we tend to find on a lot of high-end electric vehicles. And when I first heard that, I was a little bit worried, because a lot of times these big, heavy electric vehicles, the suspension can be so stiff that it gets a bit of a bouncy ride, and that doesn't seem to be the case here. And I think that goes a lot to the fact that we do have a large SUV that we're riding in. So because it is somewhat firm, handling out here on a nice curvy road is quite tight, even though this does weigh a lot. But the steering feels light, and even though it is heavy, it doesn't feel like you're driving a truck. It's very refined in its steering feel and in the overall suspension. And it's pretty solidly put together. I found that driving around town in my neighborhood, going over speed bumps, speed humps, railroad tracks, things like that, that the chassis feels well bolted together and tight. The speed hump test that I do, there's no noise in the suspension or clunks or thunks going on. It's well put together. And because it's such a heavy vehicle, you'd expect that the chassis fitments would be well sorted, and they are. Out here at highway at speed, this has a nice stable feel, very car-like. It's pretty quiet too. On our 70-mile-an-hour road test, 52 decibels. That is one of the quietest vehicles that I have tested in a long time. Right up there with some of the Mercedes-Benz high-end EVs. 52 decibels is low, 61, 62 is average. So that's way down there when it comes to road noise. Wind noise, very low too. This is very aerodynamic. And the fact that this does have a nice stable ride, in my mind, would lend confidence to the fact that you can tow with this up to 5,000 pounds. So it's comfortable driving around town, it's comfortable on the highway, and it's quiet when it comes to the handling experience. And lastly, of course, you can change up the handling experience a little bit when you change up the drive modes. It changes the way the steering feels and the way the throttle responds. It can feel very fast and light or very slow and heavy. This is a very well sorted chassis. It feels of quality. It certainly feels its price. And for a non-air suspended electric vehicle, it doesn't have that bouncing, bobbing ride that many of them do. This chassis gets 5 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, there you go for the Kia EV9. We've had a good look at it inside and out. We've taken it for a drive. You see me smile and talk positively about all of its major aspects. We have one thing left to talk about, and that is value and competitiveness. Is it worth the money? That's the big question. And at $78,000 fully loaded, it is a pretty good deal of money. But to put it in context, if you look at any large 3-row crossover SUV, electric or not, you can easily spend this much money without even going to an EV. If you buy a Ford Expedition, a Chevrolet Tahoe, you maybe get into a Jeep, their new Wagoneer, you're going to spend a lot of money if you get a well-outfitted, well-equipped, highly optioned model. That's just a fact. And so when you consider the fact that this has all of that equipment, all of that design and room and space and all of the good stuff, the horsepower, it also happens to be electric. And so that really puts a different tint on it for me. And so when you take the fact that we have an EV, which has, you know, some of the most high-tech, forward-thinking hardware under it that a lot of people still aren't sure about, and you consider the fact that this has the Kia warranty on it, 10 years, 100,000 miles powertrain, that covers the battery, that covers the electric, that covers anything that makes it go, really. And then you have a 5-year, 60,000 mile bumper to bumper warranty. Really, it's the best warranty you can get anywhere from a company that's been around for a while. So that makes it a good value for me when you consider the design, the performance, all the features that it has for the money. And yeah, so 5 out of 5 stars for value. When you put that in with everything we've talked about, we're at 5 out of 5 stars for the review. Yeah, this is good. This is good. And it's so good that it goes on my buy it list as well. If I were looking for an electric SUV, a 3-row even, I would totally buy this. I'd lease it probably. In fact, honestly, I was looking at the lease calculator the other night going, what do these numbers really feel like? And it's impressive. You know, leasing's really a good thing right now with interest rates where they're at today. It's more attractive than financing if you're buying a vehicle in a lot of ways, especially something like this, an EV. So yeah, I'd buy it. There you go. Yeah. If you like what we do, you can see our latest video right there. Better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel though, and you can do that right there. Either way, stay tuned.